Welcome back to Behavioral Finance and FinTech. I'm Andy Kim, and in this video we're going to try to finish this discussion about mood, sentiment, and stock returns, right? Algorithmic trading ideas, right? Now, language tone seem to be predictive about your future stock returns. The thing is a tone about the sentiment, the psychology, or information, some qualitative information that you could not quantify before, but now you can quantify. In Korean terminology, it's like a 정성적인 정보, 정량적인 정보. Many Korean students get confused about 정성적인 정보, qualitative information, with 주관적인, subjective information. Qualitative information, qualitativeness is not really subjective information. But due to the brainwashing part of Korean education, over the life of our high school education, we were brainwashed as if the number is objective and then the qualitative is subjective. No, 주관식, 객관식, that's misleading word, okay? 정량적인, 정성적인. I want you to distinguish these two words very clearly, all right? Because the numbers, it can be subjective numbers as well. And then the language tone, this qualitative information can be objective as well. You see the distinction? I'm going to test you in your exam. So you have to distinguish these two categories, subjective versus objective, and then qualitative versus quantitative. All right? It can be both ways, 2x2 matrix. You can think about it that way. Anyway, so is the language tone purely psychology, or is it still an information, qualitative information that you could not quantify previously, but with big data approach, you can now quantify it? So, if it should be sentiment and psychology, there should be short-term reversal. That's, and then that's what the Paul Tetlock's 2007 paper finds. And then he was praising those, the raising hands to the behavioral finance guy slightly. But in his subsequent paper, he was doing this kind of finding that the language tone can be interpreted as qualitative information being quantified. What is that? And then raising the hands of the neoclassical economists. You have to balance each other out, right? To be successful in this academic research as well, right? What did he find? Well, this time he went through the news articles of the companies, not the abreast of the market, but each different news articles about different companies. And then language tone of those articles doesn't matter in predicting future outcomes of the companies. So the title of the paper in 2008 was "More Than Words is All You Ever Need to..." Yes, quantifying language tone to measure firms' fundamentals. Yes. There he quantified the language tone of 350,000 news articles in Wall Street journals and Dow Jones Newswire about S&P 500 companies over the period of 1980 to 2004. The language tone, what he finds is that the tone of each company's news articles have predictive power for the company's future accounting performance. So language tone, 꼬리꼬리한 language tone. It's like something spooky about the language predicts future outcome. So qualitative information in the language tone is now you can quantify it. It's neoclassical, more quantifiable. It's a bit information story. Eugene Fama gets happy about it. Entertaining both part of these researches. How do you quantify those negative tones? Yes, the same way of number of how many times the negative word shows up and then total words out of it, and then just to standardize it, right? Over a certain period of time, each year by year, right? Accounting numbers, right? Fundamental numbers. You can predict fundamental outcomes using the language tone. Also, the returns of the stock prices over the future. They find significant predictive power. So if you read those wordings over here, you can see artistic language he uses in his publication. This is not something I can follow, right? Pure something native English speaker can enjoy, this kind of linguistic entertaining both part of the camps. Behavioral finance guys as well as rational economists, right? Language tone, quantified. I showed you each different news articles. You can do it in your Korean language, Korean newspapers as well. Fintech approaches, right? Fintech application. Can you find it over here? Can you apply this kind of linguistic tones? Apply this in the fintech services? Why not? Of course, right? And then here is one example coming from some company called Nuance, right? Nuance is a fintech company. They try to adopt this kind of language tone assessment. Text messages of your clients coming in. When the clients seem to be pissed off by using negative words, right? Then it's time that your banks match this guy with human respondents instead of machine respondents in their automatic response services. For example, when the customer gets hacked and then got some notification that bad things happened, the guy must have been pissed off, and then he or she may be messaging how could this happen? It's bad hackers, your security service has to be better than this, and things like that. And then the language tone, you capture it, and then this is a time you should not match this guy with the computer, because the human beings, they want to be serviced by the another human beings when in this kind of sensitive situation. So they match this guy with more of a human being services, right? On the other side of the phones. So that's what they do in your fintech services. Voice print or this kind of things, voice or biometric data. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in the second half of our semester, because that's my research part as well. Anyway, so that's that. In fintech application, text mining, it's quite popular. Analyzing the tone of news articles and Twitter messages and Facebook postings, you name it, Katok messages and all these kind of things, right? Kakao Bank is strong because they are one and all, right? You can see what's going to happen internally. Predicting the behavior of black box entities like companies, countries, and etc. Robo-advisor services, intensively using it. And for my research, I applied it for North Korea research. Why? It's a black box. Nobody knows better about, the information is not there. So what if we just, use the language tone of the news article covering the North Korea, but different nationality of the journalist. Those news media from the Britain versus US versus Korea, China, right? Japan. The different countries have different access to information of North Korea. The thing is, we Koreans have misunderstanding that North Korea, we are the best one to understand North Korea. So forget about you foreigners, get away from North Korea. We are the one, 우리끼리. I say forget about it. We are mistaken. South Koreans are the least informed about North Korea. We don't. What the heck is? Who is the number 2 guy in North Korea? We don't even have a good idea about it. We predict, such and such guy must be number 2, and such guy was killed. Why? Just by using the photo analysis. The guy over there used to be right next to Kim Jong-un. Now he's not there, which means he must have been killed. No. 6 months later, the guy shows up back in the photograph, and we say, resurrection, right? It's not Jesus Christ? No. Very poor information we have, okay? But quite unexpectedly, British news media, their language tone has best predictive power of North Korea's sudden military attack, like gun shooting to Yeonpyeong Island, or Cheonhanam Pokchim kind of things, or other shooting kind of events, or nuclear testing, missile testing, right? British media, not US media as much. Future action prediction, British media. Why is that the case? Why is that the case? Because, first of all, they are the ones exchange ambassadors with North Korea. We don't have ambassadors in Pyongyang, right? US does not have it. Japan does not have it. Diplomatic relation is not there, but British has one. 007 movie, you watch it, right? Why 007, the British movie, have North Korea over there? There's a reason why. Number two, British is the most liberal parts of Europe. It's like San Francisco, west, go west. Yeah, America, go west to the San Francisco. Europeans go west to Britain. The liberty of your thoughts was guaranteed in Britain, not continental Europe. For example, Karl Marx, the communist philosopher. He was Jewish German, but he published his book Das Kapital in London, 1848 or something. Yeah, why? Forbidden in continental Europe, very conservative, but liberty in London. That means a lot of communists in Europe, continental Europe, moved to Britain as well, and then they formed naturally a lot of communist, pro-communist groups over there during the Cold War period. The thing is, ever since 1989, Soviet Union was gone, tumbled down. Those organizations, British communist organizations, they had no place to look back. Resort to. The only communist country turned out to be North Korea. So they turned out to be pro-North Korean organization. Kim Il-sung, kind of. I'm not kidding, right? Those are there. So they provide good information sources. They become. That may be why the British news media has good information sources about North Korea, and quite naturally, their language tone has great predictive power about North Korea's sudden action. That's what I find in my paper. And it was cited in the Washington Post, the Monkey Cage Internet blog post by Georgetown professor. Okay, Eric Verton. I appreciate him. So that's some interesting movement that we can detect out of it. Language tone, you can work it out to gauge those black box movement. Real-time feed to do algorithmic trading in hedge funds, you can do it. If you have money, go ahead and subscribe to these databases like Ravenpack or something. You can automate your trading based on it. I told you about this, right? Books. Over here, that's what this is about. Yeah, and then augmented reality kind of supplementary information you can get out of it, right? And then machine supported trading, I would say. Now what? Social media, right? Donald Trump's tweet, right, is important in predicting news, right? And then the stock market. The thing is, he said fake news. I'm going to talk about the fake news later. People analyze the language tone of social media like Facebook and Twitter. SKKU students won the first prize in Mireseteo's quant competition quite naturally, right? 2018 by analyzing the tone of influencers' social media words. Yeah, great idea. Undergraduate students are fast in doing that, adapting to new technology like that. I'm proud of these guys. Great. Tesla CEO have been tweeting a lot, and it has significant predictive power of stock returns. Yeah. And then any other problem with dictionary approaches? Well, going down versus crashing. Two different negative words with different magnitude, but it's just once. Don't you think that the word have different weights depending on the seriousness? Potetlak's approach, Harvard 4 dictionary, it gave equal weights, but Jagadish and Andy Wu, came up with this paper that gives different weight depending on the seriousness of these words, right? That's something you could try. And then words, language processing. One book famous about it is Use Analytics in Finance. Raven Peck, all right, database guys have a book about this. Contrast, order of words matters in English. Yeah, this is another problem, right? If it is Korean words, right, Korean language, it's easy for machine to understand what the heck is going on for each different companies because of the language grammatical structure. 나는 행동재물 좋아한다. 좋아한다 행동재물을 나는 행동재물을 나는 좋아한다. All same meanings, right? Regardless of where it is placed. Why? Because those attached words, right, shows which word is subject word, which word is object, which word is verb that describe it. Okay? So if you throw in, right, if you just program your computer nicely, then you can enable the computers to really understand, not 100% really, but close to, really understand what is going on and accumulate those knowledge in scientific way. That's why we call Korean languages very scientific. It's made by King Sejong in 500 years ago, okay, for the purpose of helping those common people. Very democratic, ideal king. Very interesting and admirable king that we are all proud of. Gangnam Style and all this kind of Korean language, right? Simply because of King Sejong. Anyway, the English language, on the other hand, it's not that much. You cannot train your computer in coding way like that because the order matters over there. I like behavioral finance like I, and like behavioral finance I. All different, you cannot carry the same meaning if you mix up these orders, right? So it's problematic. So in that sense, English essentially gave up, okay, educating the computer to, just like what Korean language based ones can do. Instead, English computational linguists, they first focused on the frequency count instead. Why? Because they can utilize the big data, huge data, because English speaking population is like the largest in the world, right? Billions and billions of populations data is there. So let's use the machine and simple and easy, and then train the machine in our own way. That's English approach. Yeah, and also they have been using machine learning to make the computer understand the sentences by looking at trillions of text and conversations, right? Why not Korean linguists and finance experts cooperate like that? Still far away to go. Anyway, so if you are interested in state-of-the-art computational linguistics, then Stanford is the one. Dan Jurafsky is the top guy over there. Chris Manning's, right, together. They have a book about it, NLP. And then for everyday language books, right, they have this book, Language of Food. Very interesting one. Go ahead and read it. And then another limitation using this media tone. Well, Umit Gurun is the one who pointed this out. He's my friend in Texas and Turkish guy. And then his grandpa's younger brother fought in Korean War and died here, unfortunately, but we respect him. And then while Umit was visiting Korea, he went to the cemetery for the Turkish soldiers. So that's one connection with us. Anyway, his point was this. Well, media slant, right, must be there because of the advertisement, right? The media, the journalist, you don't want to piss off the company that gives money to you, the advertisement expense, 광고비 수입원, right? You don't want to bite that hand that feeds you. Quite interesting and making sense. So positive media coverage due to advertisement spending, be careful. That was their research finding. And then local media, okay, small media company, they are heavily dependent on the local companies. So they tend to say good things about the local companies, their own region. But Wall Street Journal kind of non-local, big media, they don't depend on each different company's advertisement expense too much, so that they have a huge portfolio of source of income, right? So they are more neutral, and they can say whatever negative words to the companies. So they find the language tone difference. Here is an example of language tone of MK, 매일경제, about Samsung Electronics. The language tone is like negative words frequency minus positive words frequency relative to total words. So negative percentage means like more positive words are thrown for expressed for Samsung Electronics. Nations, the country's dominant company, more positive words, praising, yes, Samsung, 재용이 오빠 사랑해요, right? You can see that going on over here, even for MK. And then this kind of 사랑해요 went away and then became more critical in 2015. At this point, what happened? Well, that was the announcement of 제일모직 and then Samsung-Bulsan mergers. Very problematic, fishy mergers that has been troubling ever since politically until now. So that's why you see the language tone happens together with it. Yeah. Now here is what I analyzed and then show the weekday average tone of news media. Here the tone is like negative words divided by positive words. So more negative words divided by total words. So 4% negative words on average for all news articles that has any company news in it. 2 million news articles I analyzed over decades of period. And then for different news media, you see MK, the biggest news media in Korea, they show most negative words for different companies all together. But smaller media, they use less negative words. And these differences are statistically significantly different. Out of million, the power of the test is there, right? The interesting pattern is weekday effect is there. During the weekends, Friday and Saturday, the language tone gets a lot more negative, critical. Okay, all social justice seem to happen during these days. Number one, why is that the case? Number one, because those company managers, the PR managers in the companies, they go for golfing. The 회장님 go to golf places. They don't pay attention to the news media too much, so that's why they may be critical to the companies over there. Number two reason may be those companies release bad news during these low attention days. Those investors, right, go to golf places and then go for family travels during these times, so that this is a time for the companies to release bad news. Two things can happen simultaneously, right? I don't distinguish those two. Maybe that's something worth investigating and then wedge it out, right? Which is driving it, worth investigating. Anyway, so that's that. Interesting pattern going on. Advertisement expense seem to affect the tone of it. So does that mean we should forget about this tone assessment and then analyzing and doing the quantitative trading it? No, we still have to do it. We just have to control for those advertisement expense in our analysis part. And then another limitation that people find is that Lafran and McDonald's paper, Journal of Finance 2011, they point out, oh, Harvard 4 dictionary, sexy Harvard there, but they're just a psychologist, not finance guys. As it turns out, their negative word list has liabilities. Yeah, everyday language liabilities means something bad, something burdensome. But in finance and accounting, it's just an item in our balance sheet. So why should we care, treat it as negative words? So take these guys out and refine the dictionary. Okay, so depending on the context of your research, you should be able to refine yourself. Okay, that's an important part. I'm going to ask you for this exams, right? Different context you should refine. You should be able to propose or refine the dictionary depending on your research purpose, all right? Quantitative trading purpose as well. Yeah, and then in my research about North Korea, of course, 주체, 굴락 kind of, words. Like the context is about North Korea. I had to refine it. Anyway, so that's that. Another interesting research in this sense is about fake news. The news matters, right? Language tone matters. But what if the news is fake news? Well, here comes the most recent research by Georgia Tech guys, Clark et al. What they find is that, what they work on is, those fake news. Do they have stock market impact on it, right? Just like no fake news, right? Real news. Here is what they did. Well, they went to a Seeking Alpha website. Why? Because it's a social media platform in which the stock investment related things are posted. Some of it are just discussion board. The other part is news release. The news report, okay? They focus on this news report part. And this news come from various sources. Some reporters are total amateur, and some reporters are very expert, yet freelancer reporters, like like Henry Bloget, right? So depending on it, right? Some of them may be fake news spreading around over here. And as it turns out, the US SEC, right, 증권감독원, caught 383 fake news cases and then brought the lawsuit to the justice. And from August 2011 to December 2013. So out of it, right, this is a nice case to nice tests that they could do to compare and contrast with the real news, no fake news. 157,000 news articles in this part as the website, right? What they found is that compared to real news, fake news received 83.4% more clicks. They have the click numbers over there. It's more like 어그로 끌어, like fake news draws more attention. But what they found is that the stock price response was weaker for this fake news. The market seems to see through some fake news. And then the smaller trading volume, okay, for this fake news. Good, right? So market seemed to be smart enough. And then for this part, right, it has very strong implication, important implication for RegTech, regulation technology in fintech area, okay? And here in this research, what they also utilize is the ideas coming from forensic psychology or criminal psychology, 범죄 심리학 kind of things, right? Those linguistic part, they analyze it together with it. Text mining technique, they use it. Compared to true news, the fake news are wordy, okay, more wordy, verbose, lengthy sentences, and word count is bigger. Why is that the case? Because of the obfuscation hypothesis coming from criminal psychology. What do you mean by that? When you tell a lie, you tend to be wordy, okay? Use lengthy words so that it will be confusing the listeners, right? Wordy, verbose, right? And then not just wordy, but also you tend to be more lacking concrete words. You don't use concrete words like in finance and accounting. The concrete words that we need are something called values and cash flows and risk, those fundamental related words, right? You need to, do you speak with this kind of concrete words about the dollar value that you bring? Liars, they cannot use that kind of concrete words. They try to gloss over and then, tell a lie somehow and confuse you, okay, mislead you. That's precisely what the criminal psychology predicts. And then computational linguistic technique, they use it and they find it is precisely the case. They don't use these words of value or cash flow there, okay? that's liars, or, lack of this kind of concrete words, that's a symptom of liars. And that goes together with this, did you watch this movie, Usual Suspect? Yeah, 1995. There, Kevin Spacey, yeah, is a guy who is playing this, the guy who is whose nickname is Verbal. Verbal in the first place. It implies that this movie has to do with criminal psychology of liars being verbose, right? Obfuscation, saying a lot of words, right? But missing all those concrete words, value or risk, that kind of words, they avoid it, right? Because it's a lie. They cannot precisely picture what the heck is going on. But they have to say something, so they become more verbal. That's that. And as it turns out, Kaiser Sose, right? Kaiser Sose, the villain boss, the spooky guy, nobody knows, right? The police is trying to catch this Kaiser Sose. Who is Kaiser Sose? And then as it turns out, this guy is the one. And until the end, he plays as if he's the, limpy guy, but at the end, he's not. That's something you can find in linguistic approach as well in finance, in RegTech. Yeah. And then when it comes to this linguistic approaches, right, in finance and accounting, another brand new research is coming up. Here, verbose one is a symptom of being a liar when it comes to talking about the performances or kind of a concrete financial and accounting use, right? You have to be more concrete, but it's not. Then you're more likely to be a liar. But when it comes to R&D, okay, this is an opposite case, opposite study, kind of an opposite study, I would say. Let's say R&D result. The companies has to report in their 10K every year how they are doing in their R&D performances. Let's say we have two different companies. One is Sputnik by Russia, and they say what? We developed a vaccine that's 100% working. You take my vaccine. Boom, it's going to work for you. Putin says that. Versus Moderna, and said, our team has made a significant progress in our R&D, and then it's doing good, but there seem to be some, we have to still test somewhat, right? We are in this phase 3 studies. The pipeline has matured with our COVID-19 vaccine in a phase 3 study and 4 candidates in our phase 2 studies. We are actively preparing for a potential commercial launch of mRNA, blah, blah, blah. But we, continue to expand the breadth of Moderna's platform like that. But there's still a chance that we may have some mistakes, but leave a room for mistakes like that, right? They don't say more concrete words than definitively work. Definitely it works. No, they don't say it that way. There's a chance of, missing it. And then they try to be glossing a little bit. Leave a room. Why? They want to avoid a lawsuit, potential lawsuit. They want to be careful about it. So R&D report, you have more reason to be careful about. So your language would not be that much of a concrete word, definitive word. No. You want to leave some room. But how would you measure the degree of leaving some room of, the researchers over here, right? 노중기 박사님, is Case Western professor. And then they creatively use Wikipedia. Okay, Wikipedia, they use this kind of Weasel inline, right? Weasel inline, which is an identifier of the such and words. Oh, this is not concrete, not precise enough. It's kind of fishy. Somebody go ahead and, make it more precise. Okay, they identify these fishy words or unprecise words, cautious words, right? intentionally imprecise words. I should say intentionally imprecise words. For example, describing the TikTok man, many consider this album to be a quintessential TikTok sound. But then Weasel line builds up over there mechanically and say, this many, how many? Is it 100 or 100,000 or millions? Manu Parolet, right? It has been said that the Manu Parolet can be seen among the many, blah, 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 blah. But machine says, it has been said. What? What do you mean it has been said? Who said it? Right? Be more precise. They identify this kind of phrases and words that are imprecise, quite intentionally maybe. So they go through these list of words that has this weasel line, and then identify and count the words in R&D reports in 10Ks, and who uses this kind of weasel line words, right, in their R&D reports, they are the ones perform better because they are more cautious. Right, R&D reporting, you have to be more cautious. That's the research finding by 노준기 박사님 and then Cookson and Moon team of researchers. Interesting thing is 노준기 박사님, he has 2 PhDs, doctor, right? One in image processing engineering, the doctors, and then finance doctors. So he's an expert over there, and so I told you finance professors have various interesting backgrounds, right? So that's an interesting development in brand new research. 물레 나타낸 space, right? Research is also going on. Yeah, that's something you can go ahead and explore. Anyway, so that's that about the mood, sentiment, and stock return. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you. And the next lecture will be about short selling. So GameStop debacles, right? Or parties, depending on which side you go. Go ahead and study that part yourself. Explore yourself, okay? What happened about the GameStop, okay? It's going to be really, really fun. All right. See you.